Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. We're doing something very fun, a brainchild from Patrick Allen. I am Sterling Holmes, joined by Patrick Allen, Matt Connor, and Adam Best. Top 50 Chiefs all time, baby. Top 50 Chiefs. So get ready. It's exciting. Bear with us. It's going to be so much fun. Starting with number 50 right now, breaking down 50 through 46 today. Coming in at number 50, we have longtime Chiefs punter, Dustin Colquitt. Guys, 50? Come on now. 50 for a man who was here 15 plus years.
There's a lot of really great Chiefs. I mean, there's a lot of really great Chiefs on this list. I'm looking over our vote, and I actually did not have Dustin Colquitt ranked, which I was a little surprised at when I looked back at the list just now. But there's a lot of really good Chiefs that to get on the list, and when you're only doing 50, it gets kind of difficult.
I had him ranked 42nd, Adam Best 44th. Patrick and Matt Connor did not have Dustin ranked. Matt Connor, let's throw to you. Why no DC?
Dude, if I'm making a top 50 list, I'm punting on punters in general. Get out of my face with that specialist bit. If you're good at what you do, I love it. Loved you, Dustin, while you were here. When you're gone, you're dust in the wind, if you know what I'm saying. There's no place on the sheet for anyone who just comes in and lightly punts the ball. That sounds great. If you do you went with a long snapper on this list, I even struggle with putting kickers on this list, except they're the glorified version of a punter, and I let at least some of them in to my list, especially guys whose names are more like the Swedish chef, Jon Stenerud or Bort or whatever they're called up there. Anyway.
The kickers score points at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, at least they score points. At least it's not like he was so good at changing the field position. That was
Matt
amazing.
Connor, he was, though. Matt Connor, this guy was
no guy says
control.
Come on, guys.
No grandpa sitting in his rocking chair back and forth going, you guys should have seen in my day the way he changed the field position game. There's never been anything like it in the NFL. Let me tell you grand stories of the days of Dustin Colquitt.
Let's have some respect for Dustin Colquitt here. He has played more games than any Chief in the history of the franchise. He surpassed Will Shields. For that alone, he deserves a lot of credit. His staying power, his longevity. He comes from a great family of punters. He was really good. It's not like he was around for 15 years because he struggled to punt. He was a very good punter. He's the best punter in franchise history. Again, he's a punter if we're considering, positional value. He can't be at the top, but he has to make this list of the greatest 50 players in franchise history.
And look, he did. Like I said, I think Matt Connor's being a little extreme. He didn't make my top 50 based on the pool of players that we had to choose from. But Dustin Colquitt was great. Quick Dustin Colquitt story before we move on. A buddy of mine and I went to a Chiefs game back during the dark times. It was the first game, I think, of the 2010 season. Early on, we went down into the lower bowl, and Dustin Colquitt was signing autographs. And my buddy wore his Dustin Colquitt jersey. He saw Dustin, and he shouted out to him, "Dustin, can you sign my Colquitt jersey?" And Dustin did like a double take because he couldn't believe that somebody had his jersey. And he looked at him and he said, "Sure, man." And then he was signing and he said, "It's ridiculous. I don't believe you have my jersey." And he said, "You're the best player on our team." And he wasn't far off. He wasn't far off.
He's not. And that's why I think he has to be top. I had him 42nd. Again, maybe I'm a little bullish more so than y'all. I get that. But again, he's been a Kansas City Chief so long. He's ingrained in the fabric of the city still. I get maybe that shouldn't play a factor, but for me, it does just a little bit. And again, the fact remains, you're right. People actually had Dustin Colquitt jerseys. There were punter jerseys because of how bad the era of Chiefs football, the majority of his career, took place in. He was the bright spot. As sad as that is, he was the bright spot. We were sitting here going, quick kick, quick punt, third down, catch him off guard. It'll be hilarious. It'll be fun. Maybe you can recover it. I don't know. But Dustin Colquitt was, again, a bright spot in a dark period of Chiefs history.
Dark until the end. He is a Super Bowl champion.
I'm so glad. Yeah. I'm so glad he got that last year and got the championship. He certainly deserved it. A lot of other guys who didn't make it long enough also deserved it, but I was happy for Dustin.
Can we talk about what this means though? When we say played the most games, right? You have guys who say, I've been a season ticket holder for 40 years. That's because they are never on the field of play. Then you have a punter who says, I played nearly 20 years. That's because you're only out there every now and then on your tiptoes, kicking the ball away, and then you get back off the field. And then guys who are like in the trenches have the average lifespan on the field of like a couple years, whatever it is. In other words, like Will Shields playing as many games as he did, that'll blow me away, put you in my top 10 all day. Dustin Colquitt playing that many years.
Spoiler alert.
Well, Dustin Colquitt playing that many years, it doesn't move the meter for me. When you talk about specialists, I'll say Dustin Colquitt was a very good punter, but he made the Pro Bowl twice. He's not even the best punter in Chiefs history, for crying out loud. Look, if you want to talk about, look at the accolades of Gerald Wilson and then get back to me on that one, because Wilson, by a country mile, has more accolades than Colquitt. Colquitt just has the longevity in the current fan base, and then he was there through some horrible years.
That's the Frank Gore of punters. I mean,
he's the Frank Gore of punters. There it is. So I'm not trying to disrespect, and maybe I'm being facetious and making my point, but overall, to put Dustin Colquitt in your top 50 Chiefs is to admit I've only ever watched 49 others.
Disagree. Hardcore. But by the way, before
that
we
actually,
that was really good, and I can't come back. That was a mic drop of where you like come back the mic and you like pick the mic up off the floor and you're like, all right, what is up, everyone? Let's try and bounce back now. He won.
I felt real good about that one.
That was really good. I will say, if anyone else remembers his post Kansas City career, it is fairly hilarious. Went to the Steelers, went to Tampa Bay, went to Jacksonville, and back to Kansas City, went to the Falcons, and then Cleveland. If you remember some of those stints, congratulations. You're a bigger Colquitt fan than I am. I will also say he is one of the few guys that made me actually like Tennessee. I like the state of Tennessee, but the university, not so much. Again, sorry, Mizzou alum over here. Got a little bit of a rivalry going on. But how many punters get drafted in the third round and actually live up to it? Again, you're right. Maybe he is the Frank Gore of punters, but you have to take something from that longevity. I think at some point we get so far off base and say, yeah, but his peak wasn't great. But part of the greatness of players is staying healthy. Again, punter is different, not disagreeing, but when people use that to discredit, for example, Frank Gore, in baseball, Omar Vizquel, I'm saying that's great and all, but how many what-if stories do we talk about? They couldn't stay healthy. Guess what, though? He did. There is something to being that solid, that long. I give a little bit of credence to longevity.
And there's another L word. It's not just longevity, it's loyalty. He was very loyal to this franchise. Not all guys are. We're going to have guys on this list where when you really think about it, are you like, are they really a Chief? Or are they a Viking? Or are they a 49 or a Raider? He is a Chief. There's no disputing that. So I think that has some merit. That has a lot of value to me. That loyalty, me envisioning him in only one uniform, that matters.
And I don't want to give too many spoilers away here, but there are a few guys who were just on the cusp of making the list that aren't going to make the list. So while we're talking about Dustin Colquitt, Dwayne Bowe was next on the list, didn't make it. Joe Thuney, not going to be on the top 50. Derek Alexander, Donnie Edwards. These are some guys like Eric Fisher. These are some guys who are good players, but they're not going to. A lot of these are ones that I know that you voted for, Matt, that didn't make the list. Let's just ask about Dwayne Bowe, because a lot of Chiefs fans know Dwayne Bowe. Most of his career, definitely the top part of his career in Kansas City. Do you guys feel like Dwayne Bowe should be on this list over, say, a Dustin Colquitt?
I mean, I do. You talk about playing good football in horrible years. The guy who moved the needle, catching passes from Tyler Palko, like Kyle Orton was his breath of fresh air. When you talk about like guys who were throwing him the football, for a while we referred to him as like arguably the best receiver in Chiefs history other than Otis Taylor before Tyreek came along. When you say he didn't make the list, I'm just sitting here going, what am I doing? I kind of want to throw my headset off in like a display of huff and puff, but I think it's unfair. What do you guys think?
Is he even the best receiver that Patrick mentioned? I mean, Derek Alexander had 1,400 yards one season.
One season.
It's an honest question. And, Joe Thuney was probably the best player that you mentioned. I mean, first team All-Pro multiple times. Last season, he was probably the best pass blocking guard in the league. I think recency bias is probably working against him. If he plays another 2 or 3 years and we redid this, he would probably definitely be on the list. It's just hard to evaluate someone like that kind of mid-career.
Hasn't played long enough in Kansas City, in my opinion. We need to see more Joe Thuney in a Chiefs uniform. Great player. I think his recency bias as well, maybe part of the reason why we don't. And we've also had a plethora of incredible offensive linemen on this list. Some that didn't make it. Again, Tim Grunard. I had Grunny on here at number 50. Grunny didn't make it. I actually had Dwayne Bowe at 46. So I'm with you, Connor. Don't get mad at me. Get mad at the other folks on this pod. But let's move on. Let's move on to number 49. Number 49, the quarterback that I grew up watching, Trent Green. Trent Green, friend of the show.
Trent Green. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
For those of you that don't know, he's also a Super Bowl champion. Fun fact about Trent Green, Super Bowl champion. All right, let's throw it to Best first. Thoughts on Trent Green at 49? Looked like you had him. You had him at 31.
Yeah, I really leaned into positional value here. He's a quarterback. And to me, he's a better quarterback than Alex Smith. I just think he was. He was saddled with horrific defenses, but great chief, some of the greatest offenses you'll ever see, played behind that offensive line that I think is the best offensive line in franchise history with Rofe, Shields, Waters, that crew, played with Priest Holmes and Tony Gonzalez and Dante Hall under Dick Vermeil. And he had a really interesting career. I give the guy a lot of credit because he was selected in the 8th round by the Chargers. They don't even have the 8th round anymore. Didn't stick, went to British Columbia in the CFL, got cut by the CFL, somehow landed in Washington, didn't want to re-sign with them, signed with the Rams. Everything was lining up for Trent Green. He signed with the Rams and Dick Vermeil. They had Marshall Faulk. They had Torrey Holt. They had Isaac Bruce. He was going to be the quarterback for the greatest show on turf. And in comes Rodney Harrison, that cheap shot artist, and blows out his knee in the preseason. A real sliding doors moment. Would Kurt Warner ever have happened if that injury didn't happen? But he hung around the league and eventually became a Pro Bowl level talent in Kansas City. And in 2003, I think they had the best offense in the league. They famously lost in that no punt game to the Colts. That could have easily gone a different direction. Maybe the Chiefs won the Super Bowl that year. They didn't. And he really never got a shot in KC to play in a Super Bowl.
It's tough. I have a big soft spot for Trent Green. You know, we just had never really had very good quarterback play. Obviously, they traded for Montana, but you got Trent Green. The talent was obvious, like you said, Adam. I don't think I had him on my list.
You did not have him on your list. I'm the man of truth over here. I'm keeping you all accountable.
Keep us honest. Look, he was great. I think he was the first Chiefs quarterback to throw for over 4,000 yards. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody remembers that, but I don't know that anybody had ever done that before. Now guys do it all the time, but it wasn't as common for guys to throw for over 4,000 yards. He had a great average. He had a good coach. If he found his way to Andy Reid at some point and stayed healthy, I think he could have won a Super Bowl. I think he was that talented. But like at the end of the day, he never won a playoff game in Kansas City. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of other guys that are deserving on this list. He was great for a short stint here, but for me, just wasn't quite enough just to get on a list. He's right there, though, and he's a Chief that when you think back along the long history of Chiefs quarterbacks, he's up there in terms of the most talented quarterbacks that we've ever had, but just wasn't there for quite long enough for me.
Boy, if you're using playoff wins as a criteria of not making this list, there's going to be a lot of dudes you got to leave off now. I'm keeping you accountable, guy.
As the quarterback, I mean, you want to be on this list, like, you got to win a playoff game, man. Come on.
He was, again, as you mentioned, he's a top 5, potentially top 3 Chiefs quarterback all time. He's probably 4. I love Trent Green, man. He's 5 then. Obviously Lynn Dawson, Mahomes, those guys are the locks. Montana, he wasn't here a super long time. Then it's Alex Smith and him. 6 years in Kansas City. You mentioned it. He kind of helped usher in a new era, this offense first era in Kansas City. Again, maybe I'm biased. He was on my list coming in at 44, which I honestly thought 44 was going to be low for Trent Green. But he was a guy I remembered fondly growing up, loved his game, great guy. Also a guy that I think you think of Kansas City when you think of his career. I know he played for a lot of other organizations, but it's still a Chief when you boil it down. A couple of funny Trent Green stories very quickly. I was working at a country club when I was in high school, and he left his phone at the golf course. And he came up to me and he was trying to find his phone. He left it on the golf cart. And so for the longest time, I saved Trent Green's phone number because I wanted to act cool. So I'd show all my friends at high school, like, look, I got Trent Green's phone number. And then, of course, we had him on the show one time. And I'm like, don't worry, Trent. I never actually called you, never texted you, didn't bother you. That always made me smile. He was a very, very nice guy. And I was also at the game when he got laid out by the Bengals. I believe it was the Bengals when he got concussed. Yeah. The few games that we went to about one game a year as a kid. And of course, that was one of the games. Frankly, almost ended his career. It really tapered off after that. So at least in my mind, Trent Green is easily a top 50 player. I had him at 44. Matt Connor, you did not have him on your list. Why not?
I didn't, and I really struggle with that. I struggle with what Adam was talking about, the positional bias, because you want to have the quarterbacks in there, but at the same time, like I had Ed Podolak on my list, who's a Chiefs Hall of Famer. Yeah. He's one of those all-time guys. I think he had like the second most yards from scrimmage in team history. Like he was a returner, a rusher. Like I had to make room for guys like that. Gary Spanny, who was a K-State guy, who's like a major tackler. I think he had the single season tackling record for years. Some of those guys historically I chose to make room. And I also had Dwayne Bowe and Joe Thuney, like we said. So some of these other guys that you could say, well, gosh, we got to make room for them, don't we? Or at least consider they happen to make my list. And when those guys make your list, you're looking at a guy like Green and you're like, wow, like what do you do with very good production? And what do you do with a few very good years, like compared to several great years or whatever? It's hard because that was such a great era. I became a Chiefs fan watching the Christian Okoye years. I was like in my prime of my fandom when Trent Green was the quarterback. Like it was like so much joy as someone who like I was old enough to really understand the nuances of football when watching it. I wasn't just coming into it. And so I don't know, it was great, but I just couldn't pull the trigger on it.
Tough but fair. I will say this is very fascinating, all of our reasonings and the end of the list. Where do we put these guys? Hopefully everyone who is listening is enjoying our reasoning behind this. I love Matt Connor. He's more of the historical. Adam Best, more of the positional value. Patrick Allen and myself, I don't know Patrick's strategy just yet. Mine is more of a vibes. I go off vibes. Who would I crush a Busch Light with? Maybe that might be how I judge.
I got one more thought on Green.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it's that after Gerbach and DeBerg and some of these other guys, Trent Green felt like caviar, having a quarterback that kind of blossomed with the Chiefs. When was the last time that happened? Was it Len Dawson? I mean, we had just had a long series of rental quarterbacks that didn't work out. So there might be some bias on my part because I was so appreciative to have him at the time.
We found out Adam Best is very wealthy. Hopefully you're eating your caviar with bone. Not my strong suit, not my type of thing, but there we go.
I think that's such a great point because when you're listing the quarterbacks, even now, like you could rattle them all off really quickly to start. Holmes and Montana, Green and Dawson. And then suddenly you like arrive at the ledge like a Wile E. Coyote and you're like, you like hurry, like your feet are like running in midair to like run back to the edge because you're like, and do I say Dave Craig now or later? Like what do I do? Because it's like such a steep fall from like the main guys, and Trent's like the entry into that main territory. Like I could see saying those guys should be top 50 for what they mean to the franchise. It's a great argument. I don't know what's right or wrong, but yeah, maybe
it was up and down though. Remember, like they had like a 7-9 season. It wasn't like they were like going to the playoffs every year with Trent Green. Like they had like a 7-9 season in there. They had the one really good season where they lost to the Colts in the playoffs.
I mean, Herm Edwards happens, right?
Look, it was not to Trent Green's credit, and he made the list. The teams were not very good, particularly on defense. So,
so blame the quarterback. Good call.
No, I'm saying in his defense, like he was fighting against the fact that like that defense got exposed that year that they lost to the Colts. Remember, they started off like undefeated, and then they lost to the Bengals.
Weren't they something like 13-0 or 11-0 or something?
I think like 9-0 or 11-0, something like that. They were, and then at like the end of the season, everybody figured out that their secondary was terrible, and they couldn't stop anybody. And that's what ended up happening. You end up in a shootout with Peyton Manning. Nobody punts, and you end up losing. And to Sterling's point about the list, when you're trying to figure these out, it's kind of like that. Like I'm taking all kinds of things into account. Like I'm looking at like what did they do statistically, but also like how do they feel as a Chiefs? And like from a feel perspective,
Vibe
you
guy.
think of Trent Green as like one of those guys, like one of our guys of the Chiefs. So I'm glad he made the list. And thanks mostly to Adam, who had him ranked in the 30s.
Yeah, 31 for best, 44 for me. You two, Patrick and Matt Connor, you guys are haters. All right, going to 48, number 48 on the top 50 Chiefs players ever. Jared Allen, baby. Jared Allen. Matt Connor had him at 47. I had him at 47. Patrick Allen had him at 48. Adam Best apparently hates Jared Allen. I don't know what's going on here. Very a positional value guy, right? Edge rusher. Very talented. Adam Best, let's start with you. Why no Jared Allen?
I love Jared Allen. He's a wild man. You know, the lasso celebration, even caught a couple touchdowns as a tight end on some gimmick plays. However, 4 years in Kansas City, he was with the Vikings longer. I think of Jared Allen as a Viking. I think most football fans would agree. I think he played in the Super Bowl for the Panthers. I just don't really, he was with the Bears too. I just don't really remember him as a Chief. I think when you think of him, you think purple. I know he started in Kansas City and was a surprise out of Idaho State, really fun player, kind of a big personality around town, maybe too big a couple of times, but we won't get into that. But yeah, just didn't make my list because a few of these guys, I don't really see them first and foremost as Chiefs.
Fair. I think the 43 sacks in 4 years, again, it was a very bright star that dimmed very quickly in Kansas City, but man, that star was bright for those 4 years. That's why he made mine. Matt Connor, throwing it to you right here. You had him at 47. Why'd you have him at 47?
Well, that's pretty amazing that 3 of the 4 lists had Jared Allen in the late 40s within a single point of each other. Like of all the players ever, we all saw Jared Allen and thought, if that's not 47, it's awfully close. Like that's just very weird to say that. It also means something about Adam is a little off.
You just now figuring that out?
It's a good call.
Hey, now look, here's what it is for me. I lean more on stats for a lot of guys, but for me, the experience of watching Jared Allen did it for me. The truth is, if you watch the way his career carried out, we would be talking about the all-time best defender in Chiefs history, Jared Allen, and that would include Derek Thomas for that matter. You know, he had 136 career sacks. He had 22 like Justin Houston, and then had a ton of other seasons close to it, unlike Justin Houston. So watching Jared Allen was the first time that I mean, watching Reggie White was amazing. It was the first and probably only time that I ever watched the Chiefs thinking, holy hell, we have our own Reggie White, you know, who was just like such a mover and a shaker up front like that. It was incredible. You know, when he came up with that 15 or 15 and a half sack season, his final year there, you know, he made the All-Pro team in his contract year with the Chiefs. I was just over the moon about it. Couldn't believe we were going to trade him. I was very sad to see him go. The emotion of losing him, plus the emotion of watching him wreck a game, there was zero chance I was going to leave him off my top 50.
Yeah, it was close for me. I mean, the very short stint in Kansas City was part of the problem. And if the Chiefs didn't stink so bad and they weren't trying to just tear the thing down to the studs and use him as a trade chip, he could have been an all-time great Chief. But he did have, I mean, he's 7th all-time in Kansas City in sacks in 4 years. That's incredible. He had 200 tackles during his time with the Chiefs, and he had 281 yards of sack yardage lost. Just to put that in perspective for you, Chris Jones has 528. So, I mean, he was an incredibly impactful player when he was with the Chiefs. Like Trent Green, he was a light in a very dark time for the team. He was a lot of fun. When you get to the back end of a list like this, and I actually think one thing we should have done that we didn't do was we all stopped ranking guys when we got to 50. We should have ranked like to 75, which would have helped some of those guys get in. But when you didn't have a ranking at all, that's it. You're getting a 0, and it really messes everything up.
Well, Einstein, it was your idea.
I didn't devise the ranking strategy, but I think this is fine. This is a fine way to do it. Everybody ranks their top 50. We average them out. You've got to make the cut on enough lists to get in there.
Are you Ray Lewis? Because allegedly there's a bus.
What's that?
Huh?
I didn't hear what you said. I hate you. So, you know, credit to Jared Allen. He was a great player during a dark time. I'm glad he's on this list. 7th all time in sacks for the Chiefs. And as Matt pointed out, when you take into consideration the rest of his career, even though it wasn't in Kansas City, the quality of player that you had, I think he belongs on this list.
I will also point out one of the few players who the Chiefs have franchise tagged. He was traded to Minnesota for a first and 2/3. One of those picks was used to select who? None other than Jamal Charles.
Question for you guys. His last year in Kansas City was the first year of Arrowhead Addict. Was he the best player on the team during that first year of AA?
In 2007?
Yeah.
Well, so we still had Tony G at that point.
Right.
What did he finish with? He finished with, that was his 15 and a half sack. Yeah. 15 and a half sacks that season.
Pretty sure Boomer Grigsby was the best player on the team that year, right? I don't know. Am I wrong? Brody Croyle?
I don't think Brody was there yet. Bone Crusher Pollard? I don't think he was there yet either.
Tank Tyler? Was he the best player on the team? I don't remember. I don't know.
Boys,
Right.
I got to get us back on track. When I'm the guy who's trying to keep us on schedule, toot. This is Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train. Going to 47, number 47, another Green, Gary Green, coming in at 47. Patrick, you had him at 44. I had him 49. Matt Connor, 48. Best, yet again, another dude who you said no, sir. Patrick, let's start with you. You had him ranked highest at 44. Why 44 for Gary Green?
Yeah, look, this is a challenge, right? The Chiefs have been around for so long. You have generations of people. And I know we have a lot of listeners who listen to the show who got to watch Gary Green play. None of us had the pleasure of getting to watch Gary Green, or if we did, you wouldn't remember too much of it during his time there. He's a Chiefs Ring of Honor guy. He was the 10th overall pick in the 1977 draft. So you got to look in, you got to dig into the stats and the impact that these guys had. And if you want to talk about a light during a dark time, late 70s, early 80s Chiefs, there wasn't a whole lot to be excited about. He started 10 games as a rookie. He had 3 picks, 3 forced fumbles, 2 recoveries, won the Mac Lee Hill Award for Chiefs Rookie of the Year. He started 99 games out of 100 during his career in Kansas City from 77 to 83. He had 24 interceptions in Kansas City, 33 in his career. He was a special teams guy as well. He left Kansas City in 83, but from 81 to 85, he was named to the All-Pro team, 4-time Pro Bowler, and he was a captain 5 of his 7 seasons in Kansas City. This is one of those guys that could easily get overlooked because it was a dreadful era for Chiefs football, was a really good player. Coming in as a rookie, back then, you kids probably don't remember, but even when I was growing up, I'm 40. Rookies never played. Like, even first-round picks would sit at most positions for a long time. It was rare that a rookie would get in there and play. It's just the way it was.
And the rookies had to walk up, go to school uphill both ways in the snow. Could have been the summertime, but it was still snowing for some reason. Is that true, Patrick? Is that what it was like?
Let me tell you, back in the 80s, it snowed every day, even in the summer. So he's just, he was an incredibly impactful player for the Chiefs. A great locker room guy. Everybody loved him, went on to teach and coach, and certainly belongs on this list. And so when these older guys that maybe you didn't get to see play, you really got to dig into the stats and make sure that you do them justice for the impact that they had on the team. And that's why I had him ranked so highly here.
Yeah, again, a couple-time All-Pro in his time in Kansas City. That was enough for me. Again, I was not alive to see him play, obviously, but again, you have to use the historical nature of it. It's not my fault. It's not his fault, I should say, that I'm too young to have seen him play. That's on me, not him. That's timing. I have to do my due diligence. Quite frankly, I almost felt bad putting him at 49. Feels like you almost need to put him higher when you see the amount of All-Pros and just the talent that he possessed, obviously. But again, it's the nature of the beast. So I had him at 49. Also, thank you, Baylor. Baylor giving Kansas City something, right? That's always nice to see. Which, by the way, Baylor, fun fact, for the oldest school in Texas. Anyone had any idea of that? Because I didn't until I did a little deep dive on Baylor.
That stat's pretty Waco.
All right, Connor, you had him on your list. You had him coming in at, looks like 48. 48.
Yeah, right about the same spot. Yeah, I had him. I had to put him on the list because I think, like, you would look at Brandon Flowers in the pre-Reed era. That's who this guy was. He's a guy. He was a standout defensive back on a lot of poor teams in an era that's quickly overlooked if you're doing the quick drive-by. And, it's important, like Patrick said, to stop. Like, well, wait, was there really no football played during those years? No, there was football played. It was miserable football, but that doesn't mean the whole team was miserable. Here's a good guy from it. What's interesting is I probably could have easily left a guy like this off the list. We all could. and included like a Joe Tooney, like someone everyone knows, or what, like for the sake of relevance. And at the same time, I think it's important to go, no, part of what makes this franchise so enjoyable right now is the fact that it comes with so many seasons of misery as well as positivity. And Gary Green was a bright spot during a long, miserable period, really all the 80s for the Chiefs. Accomplished guy, went on to do a couple great things with the Rams too, a couple great seasons with the Rams, and one of his Pro Bowl years. It was just important for me to have him included at the very end of this list.
Without rain, you wouldn't appreciate the sunshine. That were the 80s, and that's why we appreciate the now.
Wait, snow was the 80s.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Patrick said snow was every rookie, apparently, or whenever Patrick went to school. Did you drink water from a hose, Patrick? You're going to tell us about those glory days as well? Maybe slipping
you drank water from a hose. You never drank water from a hose?
I did, but I'm proving a point that your generation has to bring it up at every single step. It's like, how do you know someone's vegan? They tell you. How do you know someone does CrossFit? They tell you. How do you know someone is, what's that, Gen X? They tell you they drink water from a hose.
Don't my generation me.
Yeah, let's be honest. Sterling's not even old enough to have remembered Chad Henne. Adam, what'd you think? What'd you think of having Green on your list?
He just missed it. I think he was probably the first guy off. And I put Alex Smith at 50. So it wasn't an easy decision. I hate keeping a great cornerback off the list. I did lean into how memorable you were, how impactful you are, how lasting your legacy has been. That made it hard for Gary Green. It's not his fault, but the Chiefs were in the wilderness when he played for the Chiefs. That stretch between Hank Stram and Marty Schottenheimer was miserable. I mean, I'm honestly a little surprised the Chiefs even survived to stay in Kansas City. They were so bad. It's tough. He's obviously a 5-time All-Pro, very good player. Again, I didn't get to see him play, or if I did, I was so young, I don't remember it. But yeah, just missed.
All right, let's get into number 46, the last of today. All right, I'll tell you what, Matt Connor's not going to be happy because it is another special teamer. Current special teamer, Harrison Butker. Harrison Butker coming in at 46. Best had him at 35. Patrick Allen had him at 46. I had him at 48, just making it. Matt Connor, you did not have him. Let's start with Patrick. You had him at 46 right there. Second highest on our list. Why do you have him at 46?
Well, look, man, this is a guy he's building a Hall of Fame case, and he has made so many big kicks for the Chiefs in big spots, absolutely clutch kicks. That's what you have to do, right? To get in nowadays, to get into the Hall of Fame as a kicker, you're going to need to be on like a dynasty type team, win a bunch of Super Bowls, kick for a really long time, and have an incredible average. You have a lot of hurdles that you have to clear to get into the Hall of Fame as a kicker. And I think that Harrison Butker, look, this is a guy who was injured 2 years ago and had the worst percentage of his career and only hit 75% of his field goals and still has an 89.1% field goal percentage. He's incredibly accurate, hit 94.3% of his kicks last year. He has never missed a kick from between 20 and 29 yards. He's 51 of 51, and he's 47 of 54 from 40 to 49. The dude is nails. He's hit a 60-yarder. He's, again, the clutch kicks that he has made for Kansas City to send them to Super Bowls, to win them Super Bowls. Like that kick in the AFC Championship game last year, that was not an easy kick. It was windy. He barely got that over the crossbar. He is going to go down as an all-time Chief, but not just because of how good he actually is, but because of the spots he was good in. And he's already on the list. And frankly, he could move up it before he's done if the Chiefs keep him on the team.
Yeah, I'll go next because mine is the next most boring because I'm at 48 while Matt Connor does not have him and Adam Best has him fairly high up his list. Kind of echoing what you said, he's 91.4% in the playoffs. I mean, how common is it for guys to not only be as good as he is in the regular season, but then be better come playoff time? The answer is like none. I mean, Harrison Butker is one of those few kickers that when the game is on the line, no matter the distance, 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 plus, you're sitting here going, I'm comfortable, man. Like, I am not worried. He's made 9 field goals in the Super Bowl. 9. That's asinine.
That's a record, by the way.
There also has the record for longest 57 yards. I mean, the accolades just pile and pile up for Harrison Butker. I understand he's a kicker. I understand he's not been here an extremely long time. End of the day, though, he is just so good. The talent was too much for me to keep off. And yeah, you might say, well, he has the opportunity to make those kicks because he's constantly on these good teams. End of the day, you have to make the kicks. He makes the kicks time and time again. I trust him with the game on the line. Harrison Butker's 48 on my list. Adam Best, you had him at 35. You had him fairly high up. That's very high for a special teamer, very high for a kicker. Why 35?
3-time Super Bowl champ. How many Super Bowls do they have without him? They don't have 3. How many Super Bowls do they go to without him? Not as many as they've gone to. This is how good Harrison Butker is. And I mean, it honestly bugs me a little bit sometimes, but it'll be like 4th and 2 on the 34. And Andy Reid looks at Patrick Mahomes, the greatest player to ever live. And then he looks at Harrison Butker, and sometimes he decides to go with Harrison Butker. That's how clutch he is. That's how good he is. He looks away from Patrick LeVon Mahomes and goes with the kicker. I mean, what more do I need to say here?
That's a killer argument, dude. That is a killer argument.
He's one of the most clutch Chiefs of all time. Outside Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and Chris Jones, I think there's a strong argument that he's been the most clutch member of this dynasty to date as far as players go. And I just couldn't knock him down any lower than that. I think these last 2 Super Bowl runs, he was so integral. He was such a huge part that I don't think they win either one without him.
Has he ever missed a clutch kick for them? Like one that they had to have? Ever?
13 seconds. That's always my argument too. 13 seconds. We always talk about the 2 plays that set it up, which obviously phenomenal, but we all just assumed he was going to drill it. Like we all just were like, yeah, he's going to make this. If he doesn't make that kick, we never talk about 13 seconds. We never bring it up. It's okay. There was two nice plays. He drained it. No thought in our mind that he was not going to make it. That to me just again speaks to the greatness, the clutch nature of Harrison Butker. Again, as a kicker, there's been a lot of great kickers in NFL history. Not as many have been great in clutch. He's a combination of both. Matt Connor, you did not have him on your list. Why not?
I have a hard time refuting what Adam just said. However, let me say this. If I'm making my top 50 players for any team, whatever, like going into like this, my rule up front is going to be you get 1 kicker on this list, and then I'm getting 49 players. That's what I'm doing. I'm certainly not putting multiple kickers out there, and I'm certainly not putting 3 or more. Spoiler alert. I feel bad for Harrison Butker in the present tense because I wish he got more glory than he does. The shadow of Justin Tucker is ridiculously overbearing. In fact, it's needlessly overbearing. Tucker was not the best last year, but he still is referred to as the best kicker in the game. Butker has a hard time churning out Pro Bowls, and I'm like, if he doesn't start racking them up, he's not going to get the spot in Canton that we want him to get. So if he's stuck in the same conference as Justin Tucker for the next 5 years, I don't like his chances. And I think that sucks for him. And I love having Butker. I love him on my team. He's automatic for sure. There's only 1 parking spot allocated to kickers in this apartment complex, and Harrison doesn't have the pass. I'm sorry.
Matt Connor, also a man who does not think relievers should make it into the Baseball Hall of Fame. There's room for 1. Rivera. That's it. Sorry, Lee Smith. You're done.
How many mop-up guys are in Baseball Hall of Fame?
0.
Yeah, get out of here. I'm out. Yeah.
Well, everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was 50 to 46. A lot more arguments coming our way as we head towards the top 10 and who has the top spot in Kansas City Chiefs history. Up next, we will do 45 through 41. Until then, we are out.